anybody knows where that is, which is near Greenville. And I get a lot of questions asking if we can putting stuff like that for Christmas, but no. Anyway, my grandfather went to school here and my dad did too. And so I did as well. And I thought I was probably gonna maybe go into something in medicine. I didn't really know what, about maybe medical school. And so when I started here, I didn't really know about many options. So I'm glad that there are a lot more options today for all of you. I was a health science major and I did all of my prerequisites for medical school, physics and biology and all of that. And I found out about an anesthesiology assistant schools. I was volunteering for the Cleveland Clinic one summer, and I was sitting in an office filing papers, and an anesthesiologist walked in and said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm trying to volunteer to get this on my resume, so come with me." So went up to the operating rooms, found out about that there was a program down the street. There were only two in the country at that time, Emory and Case Western. And Mike and I are both graduates of Case Western. I was 99 and he was 2000. When I was here, I did a lot of volunteer work, which I'm sure Mike will talk about later, which is important. And it was through that I think it made it look good during my application, and also for when we were interviewed by faculty and staff and these programs. When I was here, I won the Sullivan Award for volunteering with health sciences. And Cheryl Rainey was my mentor, and she was great. And I would just urge all of you to volunteer as much as you can and get out there and try to find out what part of medicine you want to go into. Our typical day is we get up early. We all get up early in the operating room. We go in, we wear scrubs, we usually get them there, and a hat and a mask. So you don't really see much of us except for our eyes. We go in, we check out our machines, our anesthesia machines, get our medication ready. We see what we're doing for the day. And a lot of times we find that out the night before. Our days can be pediatrics, neurosurgery, cardiac, vascular. It just depends where you work. There are some surgery centers that only do outpatient surgery. So it's high volume, quick places where you're doing a lot of healthy people. However, we've both worked in places where we're doing very sick people, traumas. So really it kind of is up to where you want to work as an AA, as to what kind of environment you're in. So any day can be different, every day is different, which is really nice. It never really gets too boring. And I think we both enjoyed it for the past 25 years almost. So we get in the operating rooms, we get our medication together. We go meet our patients, and there's a protocol for how, we make sure there's paperwork that's needed, that has to be done by the surgeon and by the hospital. Then we'll take our patient back, give them some oxygen, put them to sleep. We have to keep them asleep, and we have to breathe for them while they're sleeping, which is usually through a couple of devices, including intubation. So these are things that you all learn when you're in school and to become an AA. And while the patient is asleep, we are responsible for their blood pressure, all their vital signs, and keeping them asleep so that the surgeon can do his or her work. When surgery is finished, we wake back up and make sure they're okay, drop them off into the PACU. The nurses to watch. So you can do anywhere from one case a day to 12 or 15. If you're doing eyeballs, it can be 20. So you have to be pretty resourceful and meeting people for the first time on a pretty bad day in their life and getting them to trust you and putting them at ease. So I guess that's about it for our daily. Anything else?
How many of you know? How many of you know what anesthesia is? All right, let's start with you. All right. Someone tell me what's anesthesia. So you know what it is. Put me on the spot. Someone put you to sleep. Okay. Do you think anesthesia involves anything that's not putting you to sleep? Yeah, certainly. Certainly. So on a global scale, right, anesthesia is essentially taking away pain, right? It's a big part of our job, right? And there's a bunch of different ways we can do that, right? Everything from, like Jen said, putting you all the way out to sleep, right? Going to sleep, rendering you unconscious. So one of our mentors in the CASE program once told me that it rings true. And the more you learn about anesthesia, the more you know that this is true. Essentially, general anesthesia, putting you off to sleep, essentially us poisoning you to the point of unconsciousness. Okay, and then being able to control that while you're asleep, and then bringing you back out of it when we want you to. Okay, it's that sort of dangerous and critical, right? But it's also that sort of art form that allows us to do that. But to your point, right? Epidurals for pregnant moms. Anytime you go into the dentist and numb up your gums to do work, that's a form of anesthesia, right? It's taking away sensory pain for some type of medical procedure, right? So that's just the basic scope of it. But it gives you an idea of everything that you may in this type of profession touch. And it's pretty cool, right? To Jen's point, the scheme of what we can do on any given day can range from numbing somebody's finger for a small little finger procedure to putting them to sleep so that somebody can operate on their heart or even transplant. Right. I know I'm biased, very biased, but I think it's the probably the greatest profession in or specialty in healthcare. Just because you get to touch so many different areas, right? You take a leadership role in the operating room. You're sort of the nexus by which everything happens in the operating room. So it's really pretty cool. Plus, you get a different, different experience of it. Right? So let me take one step back. Do you mind if I stand? So you guys don't want to train your man for what does that. But my name is Mike Nichols. I had the pleasure of, I'm the Dean of Anesthesiology System Program. BCOM is the Edward B. College of Osteopathic Medicine, right? So BCOM as an institution started back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it was an independent College of Osteopathic Medicine, probably in Blacksburg, Virginia, in Texas campus. It was born and still remains foundational mission in bringing high quality healthcare to historically marginalized communities, rural areas, and in the very initial stages, there was a high focus on creating primary care physicians to take care of people in those particular areas that didn't have access to that type of healthcare. Fast forward to now, BCOM is actually the second largest medical school in the country. We have 4 campuses all throughout the Southeast United States. So still the largest ones in Blacksburg, Virginia, Virginia Tech's campus. Our second campus was just down the road here in Spartanburg. The campus that I'm coming from down in Auburn, Alabama. And then our newest campus is in Louisiana, Monroe, Louisiana. Campus. That, like I said, that mission, we're a very mission-driven organization, is still inherent there. We weave that into the anesthesiology system, right? So you're not only going to learn anesthesia, but you would learn about how you can affect and better the community and the population around you, just by providing high-quality healthcare, but getting out and understanding what's going on in the community, ingraining a sense of community service, population health, and preventative healthcare through the lens of anesthesia. The campus, the AA program in Auburn is our first AA program. I can't say with certainty, but I can almost say with certainty that it won't be too long before we bring one to Spartanburg. But right now I'm coming to you from the Auburn campus. One of the reasons that we connected with Harlan is BCOM from the medical school and has a very good relationship with Clemson University to create a early acceptance program, wherein a student from Clemson can fulfill all the prerequisites for the program and be considered for admission during their junior year, go into your senior year, and have spots saved for you in the program. So we carried that forward, and that's what led us to connecting with Carolyn and creating a very similar and hopefully very fruitful program as well. And then the added advantage is that Helen and I got to connect on a completely different. Full disclosure, I went to Ohio State, so I'm an Ohio State Buckeye, right? And so, yeah, I know. So for many years, on the eve of all these playoff games, I get these texts from Jen challenging me to have to wear a Clemson Tiger outfit if Ohio State loses. For so many years, I had to bear that run. But she's been very quiet the past couple of years. So, but anyway, so how many of you are all of you a science major right now? Everybody is. Okay. And where do you want to go? What is your focus now? Is it medical school? Is it PA? Is it OT, PT? Is there anything in the medical field, that sort of floats your boat? I'm sort of a little bit undecided. That's where I was at. So much like Jen, I didn't know anything about the anesthesia assistant program at all. And like she said, back when her and I went through school, there were only 2 programs in the country. There was one in Atlanta, there's one up in Cleveland. I was applying for medical schools and was doing an interview at Case Western and happened to see the sign for the hallway where the program was at. I was walking out of the hospital. Right? Took a turn, like, hey, this sounds pretty cool. And sort of the rest is history. Fast forward now, nationally, there's 14 programs, probably another 4 or 5 that are somewhere in the works of being developed or introduced. The community of AAs has grown from just a couple of hundred when we went through to over 4,000. And so it's an exquisitely fast growing profession and expanding. So it's really pretty cool. So you guys are all familiar with what PA is, right? How about, are you familiar with what a nurse anesthetist is? Okay. So what I consider the difference between a PA and an AA, right? Educational pathways are very similar, right? You come in with a basic biomedical science background. Major can be in just about anything, as long as you have that prerequisite course that's necessary. Where I equate PA and AA training differences. PA training is very wide in medical science. It's not very deep in any one particular specialty or health, right? So the entire premise of the PA is that they train a competent healthcare provider, but all of the specialty practice education sort of takes place on the job, right? It provides some latitude in the profession. That would be true, but the old soliloquy is that PA, you could be working in the dermatologist's office on Friday, taking the job, and you do cardiac surgery or helping with cardiac surgery. And so it's sort of on the job training, very wide foundational basic health sciences. AA training is sort of the exact opposite, right? It's not very wide. We get you the basic science healthcare knowledge. It's very, very deep, very, very focused on anesthesia. Right? What you need to know to provide an anesthetic to keep a patient safe. And then medical school or becoming a physician is both wide open, right? It's everything in there. Jen told you a little bit about what sort of day in the life is like of an AA. The program itself, 28 months. So we start every June. Graduation in September. The program, like I said, is housed all on Auburn's campus. We're on the top of our building. You can see Jordan Hare Stadium, so that's pretty cool. Students of the program are given all of the activity rights of honor universities, so that's really pretty cool for them. I think, again, biased, but I think that compared to all the other AD programs that are out there, it's the best college campus atmosphere. That's an SEC. Not the SEC is better, but the SEC is big. SEC campus. So a lot of cool stuff going on. And just driving in here, this is my first time at Clemson. Jenny's never invited me again. Probably for obvious reasons. But it reminded me very similar to sort of kind of that rural feel as you're driving in, but a very large 28 months. It's broken into six blocks over those 28 months. Block one is a heavy didactic block. That block, we're going to teach you your pharmacology, your physiology, physics, anatomy, instrumentation, and monitoring, some health policy. So we do get you into the simulator. Right? We use a lot of simulator-based, skills-based training in the program, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is it provides the opportunity for us to look at the students and make sure that we're getting that hand-eye coordination down, which is exquisitely important in our profession. It also provides the opportunity to do things over and over and over again, replicate those actions over and over again without having to do it on a patient. Right? When Jen and I went through, we didn't have that luxury. We learned how to place IVs on each other, and then on the poor patients that we were taking care of when we first started. Right. So that's block one. Block two is a shorter block, takes place between November and January. That's a clinical immersion block to get into the operating room, to see what the job's all about, get a real flavor for what it means to deliver an anesthetic, interact with a patient, learn what the perioperative environment is like, interacting with nurses and surgeons, and start to put those pieces together about why physics, pharmacology, and anatomy matter from delivering an anesthetic solution. Block three we bring back, that goes February-ish through June. That's all anesthesia specific didactic work, right? That's pathophysiology, applied physiology for anesthesia coexisting diseases. We really dive heavy and deep into how does an anesthetic affect a disease process, how does the disease process affect an anesthetic, and how do we change our plan and what we're going to do based on what the patient is presented with. Well, again, we use a lot of the simulator-based training during that block. That's a lot more of the sort of advanced techniques. That's doing some of our regional anesthetic stuff. That's putting in some of our invasive monitoring lines. And we do a lot of crisis resource management training, which is we're training non-technical skills, right? So it's exquisitely important when you're in the operating room to be able to handle stress, right? We work in an exceptionally highly dynamic profession, meaning things are changing all the time. You have to, one of the reasons that we require statistics as a prerequisite of the program is that we have to have practitioners that think statistically. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that you're constantly taking in data, right? That's essentially what anesthesia is. You're constantly taking in data, whether that's auditory data that you're hearing from the patient or from your monitors, stuff you're seeing on the monitor, you're seeing in the patient, you're looking at in the surgical field, and you're hearing from surgeons, the nurses, your anesthesiologist. You have to take all that data in, you have to process it very rapidly, you have to correlate things, you're applying probabilities to say this is likely what's going on with the patient. I'm going to treat it this way, I'm going to watch for what change it, and I'm going to change my plans as it goes along. So we work on a lot of that. Then the latter 16 months of the program development, you do one-on-one clinical experiences every day for 16 months. It's very intensive, but that's where you're actually learning how to do we do a capstone project at the tail end. That's based on quality improvement in some sector of that. And so that's sort of the constructs and the basics of what curriculum stuff. Our some of the things that we carry forward in that mission to the program, and we've been even in just the initial stages of bringing this program online, and we just opened up our application portal a few weeks ago. So we're taking 40 students in our first class. In the 7 weeks that the portal has been open, we got 300 applicants. So it kind of gives you an idea of interest in these types of professions. But we're looking for, we've got a strong focus on serving the areas that we services, right? That's the Southeast United States. It's one of the reasons that we came here. It's one of the reasons that we form relationships with Auburn University and University of Alabama, Tuskegee, Morehouse, UGA, Cornell University, and Clemson, right? Because we want to find students that are from these areas, interested in healthcare, that want to train here and then want to stay. We want to make impactful change on the healthcare of the communities that you guys come from. Okay? And the best way to do that is to recruit people, recruit students that are from the areas, that want to train in areas, and then want to stay in certain areas. And that's when you get an emotional connection to an area as we feel like it's actually making a change. So the our current applicant pool really reflective of the trends that are going on in the profession overall. So the majority of our applicants come from one of three pools. Pool number one would be those that kind of fall right below that cut line to get into medical school, right? They want to go to medical school when they have an income, that's the pathway they want to go. But, you know, again, statistically, 50,000 people take the MCAT every year, about 15,000 do it. Right? It's exquisitely difficult to get into medical. So that leaves a 60–70% of individuals that are highly qualified, very intelligent, and have an interest in healthcare. That's a big deal for us, right? The other pool are people that are totally qualified to go to medical school and make a lifestyle decision to go to school for 28 months instead of 10, 12, 14 years, right? With what we're with the salaries that AAs are apparently making, it takes an anesthesiologist, a physician. It takes till about age 50 for that physician anesthesiologist to catch up to the income level. Not what we get paid. We don't get paid the same, but the fact that we get out there in 28 months and you're generating a considerable amount of personal revenue and not assuming as much debt, you're financially better off until about that 47 to 50. The profession is becoming over the past decade has become slightly majority female. About 55 to 60% of the profession is female, and that's reflected in our current applicant pool, which is interesting to see. The average age of the profession is about 34, 35, so it's a young profession as well, which is really pretty cool. It's a exceptionally good lifestyle. My wife's an AA, and she works 2 days a week. She does that because she wants to spend more than free carting with the kids around soccer practices. But to be honest with you, she makes over 6 figures just working 2 days a week. Loves her job, loves going in, loves the interaction with the patient, loves the coworkers she has. It's just that fits her lifestyle. There are individuals, friends of ours, that they want to be the revenue generators, big revenue generators. So they're picking up call, they're working overnight, they're working weekends. think I knew somebody who paid off all of their student debt in 3.5 years. Just fine, right? Now they live in the hospital, but nonetheless, it can be done. So it fits a lifestyle that you determine is best for you. What else? What else can I answer for you guys? I've done enough talking. I want to open this up to questions you may have about profession, programs, about why I'm here talking to you guys. I was looking at your shirt. I remarked to Jen, because of a Tiger Town here. There's a Tiger Town in Auburn. You're gonna have to become a different type of tiger, but that's all right. That's all right. Yes.
Okay, so you said that you're interested in applicants for like from here. You mean like born and raised here, as opposed to here?
So what we want is, we want people that have an interest in staying in the Southeast United States. I'm not saying you have to stay in Clemson, South Carolina. And I'm not saying I won't consider students that are from outside that area. But our mission is to bring high quality healthcare and have impactful change in the area that we serve. So the VCOM service area extends from Virginia on the top end to Texas on the western side and down. So it's the entire sweep of the Southeast United States. So our focus, and that's by far one of the fastest growing sections of the country. So we want to find people that have an interest in staying in that area, because the need is so historically the job placement rate for data graduates is somewhere between 90%. So told you about the interest on the front end. That's the interest of the graduates on the back end. And the vast majority of students have jobs relevant to graduation. There is such a shortage of anesthesia providers, nationally, particularly in the Southeast, right? So one of the challenges we have here in the Southeast United States, right, is population growth that comes from a couple of different areas, right? There's an if you take Texas, right, there's an ever growing increase in the Hispanic population, right? That's requiring healthcare. All of the baby boomers are moving into the Southeast, right? And when do people most likely need healthcare? They're old, right? Right. And the Southeast United States is growing. There's more minority individuals graduating. There's a higher graduation rate of minority individuals, particularly in the Southeast United States, than there ever has been in the history. So there is a huge population increase, and that's projected to go on and on and on and on. And with that comes the necessity of having healthcare providers. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes.
How competitive is this application?
So like I said, we have about 300 applicants for our 40 seats thus far, right? We are looking for applicants. We're the only aid firm. We don't require an MCAT or a GRE. Right? The reason for that is, again, as you guys may gather, sort of taking it down, right? There's been no data that shows that there's a correlation between how you score on the MCAT or GRE and how you perform in this teaching. Right? There is some significant data that shows a correlation between MCAT scores and how a medical student performs on step 1 in their USMLE boards. That's the only correlative data that they can show between the two, right? I'm not training test takers. I'm training anesthetists. Right? I care about who you are as a person, the plus your ability to translate what's in your head down to your hands and take care of a patient. MCAT score, GRE scores, not going to tell me much. All it's going to be able to do is stratify the pile of that. And that's not really, somebody can't equate the entirety of an individual down with unbalanced, right? So our prerequisites, organic chemistry, biology, physics, biochem, anatomy and physics, or anatomy and physiology, statistics. We would like to see some type of community service. Doesn't necessarily have to be healthcare, but a penchant for providing service to the community thinking outside of oneself is very important to our culture and to our mission. It's something we carry forward in the programs. We want to see applicants have that as well. The applicate or the admissions and the application process, the competitiveness really comes down to you choosing the program that best suits you, right? You guys chose Clemson Rose, right? It's a great school, but also because you felt it was where you would have the highest likelihood of success. For whatever foundational reasons those are. And I think that that's the most important thing when you're choosing a graduate school, right? Where does it set up best for this? Every AA program is going to teach you the exact same thing, right? It's because it's mandated pretty much what we have, right? Now, if we add in some extra stuff, then that can make the program a little bit different. Right? And every program has a little flavor, maybe a little bit different. Who delivers the didactic information? So our faculty is a hybrid mixture of AAs, the medical school faculty, which is a decided thing, right? You're getting pharmacology taught to you by the clinical sites, so the clinical experiences you're going to have, the community around which you're going to be studying, right? But those are all important things. They're very personal things. And you have to choose where you feel the best, right? All the AA programs are difficult, right? It's a tremendous amount of information coming at you. It's very, very short, very, very pointed. Right? They're all different, and they're all very good. I can't point to one and say there's bad. They're all very good. They all have their own little characteristics. They're all teaching you the same thing. Doesn't matter who's teaching you, what kind of clinical experiences you can expect, where it's at, right? University of Colorado School, you go on ski, mountain bike. Nova Sky campuses in Tampa and Fort Lauderdale, on the beach, totally cool, right? I don't have beach and mountains to offer, but I got an SEC campus. I got a community feeling that everything that a large university has to offer is very important. And I've got to focus on community building, community service. I've got outreach opportunities locally in the Appalachian foothills and down in the valley. So those are some of the things that make us. But I'm not gonna. It's competitive. Anytime you have 10x applicants for the number of spots that are out there, it's going to be competitive. But the competition, as far as our program goes, is more about you choosing us as the best place that you feel is going to have the most success for you, and us looking and saying you're going to fit the culture and you're going to succeed here. Right? The worst thing from my perspective that I can do is let somebody into the program who from the start, and then it just doesn't work out, right? I wasted your time, I wasted my time. Right? So my job, once I let you in to the program, is to make sure you get out there. And darn it, I'm not going to let you get out there if I think there's not a snowball's chance in hell that we're not going to take care of the patient. Right? So those are all the things that we have to think on the front. Who's going to make a great AA? Who's going to make a great patient care provider? And who's going to fit in with the culture? Those are the things that we look at most importantly. Yeah.
So you said that we should start applying for this in junior year.
You can, so I mean, if you're seniors, jump on right now. You can apply right now for next year, right? So our application portal, so all of the AA programs, and I promise I'm going to this. All of the AA programs are on a centralized application system, right? So you go into, it's called CAS, it's a centralized application service. You go on there, you create a profile, and then you just select which programs that you want to send your stuff to. Right? So there's 90% of it is all standardized questions. Right? You're going to upload all the transcripts, letters of references, personal statements, all that kind of stuff. And then each program asks some. Just to try and learn a little bit more about who you are as an individual, right? What we're talking about here with this particular early admission, early decision program that Carolyn's taking leadership on, right, is that there is the opportunity for somebody, and this would even more so probably be in your sophomore year, that you would identify that this is what you want to do, right? Because it's at that point now, and I'm not saying wait till you're sophomore. If you're a freshman, is anyone a freshman? Oh, sweet. All right. If you're a freshman and you're thinking this is the way, the sooner you get into Carolyn and Carolyn's office, the better, right? Because what she's going to be able to do is she's going to be able to sculpt out for you a curricular pathway that makes sure that you have all of those prerequisites, that prerequisite coursework, right? She's going to be able to work with you and make sure that you're on track to have all of that stuff, right? Then through this particular program, which we only have with a few universities, right, is in your junior year, if you've gone through this, you've worked with Carolyn, you've got all those prerequisites done, as well as the other things that we ask applicants to do. We can actually interview you during your junior year, and late fallish of your junior year. We would work with Carolyn's office, we form a committee between our program and Carolyn's office, right? And we assess and we admit a certain number of students and say, okay, you're now in the tail end of your junior year, you're going into your senior year, but we've already made admissions decision on you. So you can go into your senior year knowing that we're saving a spot for you in the next available class, and you know where you're going. That makes sense? So it's an early decision, early admission. So we highly recommend that you get in and shadow at least a day, and that's more so for your benefit than it is for ours. And that's just simply because you get the experience of what it means. Given the times we're in with COVID, a lot of these hospitals are still sort of on constriction as far as who they'll let in. And so sometimes it becomes difficult for students to get those opportunities. And we recognize that, so we can't make it a prerequisite if we can't ensure 100% of students. Okay? But what we can do is, if at the time of applying to this program, you didn't have an opportunity to see an anesthetic or provider, if we invite you down for an interview, we'll get you over to East Alabama Health Center. Let's give it a shot today. Because we want you to know one thing. You get in that operating room, you look over that drink, and I don't know. I need to know that before.
I will say that I've worked at a couple places. I worked at one time, a couple years, and I moved down south and worked in Savannah. We had students come in there. And then I work in the Piedmont Medical Center right now in Rockville, South Carolina. We have people coming in shadow. And then I also work here at Oconee for Prisma every once in a while. I'm here this week on my days off from my other job. And I've had some students contact me already about from Clemson wanting to do the shadow. So they're getting back into it. Just do what you need to do. Call the hospital, call the Prisma over there at Oconee and they'll just make you do a couple of things and maybe get a TV shot. Fill out some paperwork, do some online stuff, and then it should be able to get you out.
So what are some of the big differences between an AA versus an anesthesiologist?
Good question. So an AA, so an anesthesiologist, physician anesthesiologist, right? So physician level training. So an anesthesiologist goes undergrad, 4 years of medical school, and typically a 4-year residency. And about 50% of them go on and do some sort of fellowship. That's either 1 to 2 years. So they're having 12 to 14 years of education. And AA, you're looking 24 to 20 months of education. The practice paradigm of an anesthesiologist assistant, much like that of a nurse anesthetist, right, is that we work within what we call the anesthesia care team, which means on any given day, an physician anesthesiologist will supervise or oversee 4 concurrent steps. So one anesthesiologist can supervise up to 4 operating rooms that are running simultaneously. And those operating rooms will always have another qualified anesthesia provider. So that'd be an AA, that'd be a nurse anesthetist, which is CRNA, could be an anesthesia resident, fellow, that's currently but the physician anesthesiologist is always involved with the care of that patient. So they're determining the type of anesthetic, and it's immediately available, throughout the anesthetic. There's a it's similar to comparing the educational difference between a cardiac PA and a cardiac plastic surgeon. Right, so it's very similar. That answers that?
Yeah.
That's-
I mean, I find it comforting working in that environment because, I mean, things go wrong sometimes and not because it's one of our fault. It's good to have a hand, someone else there to help you. And so you're mainly there when you go to, going to study, you go to the, waking up, and doing it, that's the problem.
Any other questions?
Kind of along the same line, what the difference between the anesthesia assistant and the.
So very good question. So easy way to compare. So if you're familiar with what a nurse practitioner is, right? So a nurse practitioner is to a nurse anesthetist, what a PA is to an AA, right? So different educational pathways leading to the same practice paradigm, right? So PAs, AAs come from a basic science background, typically have an undergraduate degree in some sort of biomedical science, biology, chemistry. It can be anything that's on a step of prelims. It's nurse anesthetists, nurse practitioners come from a nursing background, nursing school, and then on to the graduate program. The education, graduate level education of nurse anesthetists and of AAs is very similar. If you look at the curriculum side by side, it's we're trained in anesthesia. That's not see, you're going to learn that pharmacology. So that's not what you do. Nurse anesthetist. Ours is a younger profession. Nurse anesthetists have been around since the turn of the 20th century. So AA practice currently we're in practice already in 18 states. Most of the Southeast United States is covered in that 18. But that's a growing number. When Jen and I went through our program, I think it was like 9-ish or so states. So CRNAs currently can practice in all 50 states. The CRNAs they can work under the supervision of any type of physician. Doesn't have to be a physician anesthesiologist. So if there's another type of physician that happens to be out there that's supervising an anesthetic, they can technically work underneath them, but the vast majority work in the same format. You're going to work with CRNAs and doctors side by side. And prior to coming here, I worked in a practice of 250 anesthetists. We have 110 anesthesiologists, and you're just hired as an anesthetist. Doesn't matter which of those initials are behind your name.
All right, so question now. What's your thought?
It's going to be a good one.
What is the process after you graduate? Like license certification, like exam,
Great question, great question. So, upon graduation, you take a national certification exam. Right? That national certification exam, it's a standardized exam, right? It's computer based. We get you all prepared for it. Right? Certainly 28 months of education, but also we do 10 different practice exams. So by the time you get that, you're totally used to taking one test. But you take that, 4 years later, you take another one. Continuing demonstration of quality exam. And then after that, every 10 years you take that test. But then in the interim, that every year you have to do a certain number of scans. To medical education, just to keep the knowledge. Licensing. Most it's all how you get the practice acts in individual states, but the vast majority of the states you're licensed through the board has some system.
People generally like, if it is, stay in that same area after the finish the program.
Like geographically.
Yeah.
Yes and no, right? So you could go work anywhere, right? I will say that the most populated states or areas are those right around programs. Some of that being that when you guys are in your training, right, you're getting comfortable, you're getting used to where the cafeteria is in that hospital, the people that you would be working with, the types of cases you would be doing, just get comfortable. So, and like I said, the shortage of anesthesia providers is so intense that on those clinical rotations, they're almost recruiting events for those hospitals. So it's typical that majority of students tend to stay within a 50-mile radius of a program, but that's simply why. And it's part and parcel of the reasons that we're trying to create as many AA programs as we can, various different locations, because that's how we populate areas with anesthesia providers.
So then the clinical rotations are always varied in that second of the PA program, where like two people about.
Sure, great question. So the clinical rotations, the majority of them are what we call general, right? When you're doing whatever cases, right? We have to be nimble. We have to be amenable to doing whatever type of procedure. We do specialty rotations in certain subspecialty areas. So cardiac rotation, right? Very specialized aspect, pediatrics, obstetrics. Those three are sort of core specialties that we want to make sure, because those anesthetics are a little bit different. Right? Anesthetizing for a big cardiac surgery involves a heck of a lot more monitoring, involves big time changes in hemodynamics that it's, patients are very, very sick. Anesthetizing a child is a whole different ball wax. Okay? That's something I don't do since here. I horrible to say, right? But prior to this, I came from a big cardiac hospital. My people would say, I have no idea how you handle that kind of stuff, those types of cases. Well, you know what? I'd rather put a cardiac cripple, 88-year-old, on death's door, patient to sleep, try and get him through it, than booger up a 2-year-old's ear tubes and hurt a child. There's no way I can't. I can't do it. But see, that's the beauty of the profession. I just sort of pick what, and God bless those people that can. I can't. Hell, I can't even listen to the same Jude's radio. It's just not me. And then OB is a different animal too, right? Only time in all the medical specialties we're taking care of 2 patients simultaneously, right? So that's very different. So those 3 are the ones that we want to ensure that we have specialty access to those types of cases. But for the most part, outside of that, it's what you experience in the different hospitals that you go to. Much as we want to train here to stay here, our rotations are right. So majority of rotations are in Alabama and Georgia. We have some in South Carolina, some down in Florida, some in North Carolina. But the core of them are in Alabama and Georgia. It's Spartanburg one, in North Carolina, South Carolina. Yes, sir.
Do you know when that program will be up?
What's that?
Harvard?
No.
No.
No. I don't. It's whenever the bosses tell me it is. It's not. It takes about, it takes about, 18 to 24 months from the time that they say, okay, let's build a program to actually have students in seats. It's not an easy process, as you might imagine. To some extent, you know, if we have, so for example, a couple of the applicants to our program are, nurses that are from the Auburn area, that lived in the Auburn area, that practiced for 10 years, with families there. We're gonna do our best to keep them in the Auburn area. Because that is the program. Some like to go everywhere, right? Some like to do rotations that are outside of the geographic area. I'm sorry. Outside of California. And that's certainly open. But the other end of that is that, yes, there's some latitude in deciding where you do clinical rotations, but it's also important from our end that we're constantly monitoring to make sure you get the experiences that you have to get. So I can say, yeah, you can have all the latitude in the world, but if all of a sudden you're falling behind on this particular thing, and I'm going back on the rotation, you can be the boss, but I'm also the boss. What else? Good. Thank you guys so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I hope, please, I got second cards here. Got my email address and my phone number. Give me a call anytime, email, whatever. I'll get my way to see them. Cell phone never prints off, so. But please, anytime you have questions, comments, come visit the other Tiger Town. You know, it's pretty cool. I promise to come in the fall, it's even better. Hope to see you guys soon. Hope you guys come to the 8th, whether you have our program or not. Thank you, guys.
Again, for people who came in later, if you do go to our website, the APA website, you should be able to find the EAP program. Here under resources, we do have the DCOM EAP for medical school, and then we will be doing the EAP for the anesthesiology assistance program, and then this will tell you the eligibility, GPA, the courses that is needed. And like he said, right now you don't need a GRE and you don't need an MCAT. So think about that. That matters. Okay. And then for people who weren't here, you need to make an appointment. It is through CU Navigate, career professional development, health profession advising, and then you should be able to get in contact with myself or Kimberly, and we should be able to help walk you through anything that Michael hasn't been able to answer for you. Okay. All right. So have an enjoyable day. Stay dry.
Oh, no. Awesome.
Yeah, and from Tony sometimes, at first month at the hospital. They are, they just think they've just started again. So if you want to call, they're actually. Yeah, we'll check. But you know what, I would ask the volunteer office first, what you need for shadow in the hospital, because it's a couple of different things in every hospital. Yes, and then they can put you in touch with me. Yes, I had a couple other students. Yes, Moon. So, yeah, they only me. Just you say Moon. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Holly just texted. Thank you guys so much.
Take care.
I had a meeting, so I was trying to like run over here, so I didn't just. Right, they videos of them. Oh, my sure.
Is that gonna be posted online?
Yeah, once it comes through on Zoom.
I was just gonna cheer.
Sure, and if you have any questions over the.
Yeah, I think I'm also gonna look into shadowing too,
Okay,
so
good.
might be in contact.
Yeah,
We'll
too.
improve as well.
Yeah,
Good to see
you
you
too.
too.
Hi.
Yeah, it's kind of like, shake up engines, I interact with Will. Both my parents actually went to Auburn, so. My dad's, overall orange.